Right now, India's in the middle of something huge, a massive legal reboot that's completely rewriting the rules for our digital lives. So today, we're going to break down exactly what that means, and more importantly, why it matters so much to you. Just think about it for a second. So much of what makes you, well, you, your money, your private conversations, even your identity, it doesn't live in some dusty old filing cabinet anymore, does it? Nope. All of that stuff, all that critical data, it all exists in this vast, kind of invisible world we call cyberspace. It's the place we work, we shop, we connect, pretty much every single day. And that brings us to the big one, right? In a world with no physical borders, where a crime can happen in a split second from the other side of the planet, how on earth do you create laws that can actually keep up? Okay, so to really get why this whole legal reboot is so important, we first have to understand just how different this digital frontier really is from the physical world we're all used to. Fun fact, the term cyberspace actually came from a science fiction writer, William Gibson, and it just perfectly captures this whole idea. It's not just the internet, right? It's the entire digital realm where our lives play out, from our banking apps to social media feeds to everything we store in the cloud. And this slide, this is exactly why the old laws just couldn't cope. Think about it. They were built for a physical world, with real borders and tangible evidence like fingerprints. But cyberspace, it's borderless, the evidence is invisible, and the crimes happen literally in the blink of an eye. So how did India first even try to tackle this? Well, the original answer was a law that has basically governed our digital lives for more than 20 years now, the Information Technology Act of 2000. Believe it or not, before the year 2000, India had zero specific laws for the internet. Any online crimes had to be kind of awkwardly forced into the old Indian Penal Code. So the IT Act was a huge deal. It was the very first attempt to build a real legal framework for this new digital age. And listen, for its time, this thing was revolutionary. It made e-commerce legal, it validated digital signatures, and it defined digital crimes for the very first time. It literally built the legal scaffolding that India's entire digital economy stands on. But, as you can imagine, the sheer speed of technology meant this law was going to be outpaced and fast. And while the IT Act was a fantastic start, criminals, well, they're clever. They quickly figured out how to exploit its biggest weakness: borders. This didn't just create a few legal headaches, it unleashed a whole new kind of crime wave, one that could jump across countries instantly, leaving old-school policing completely in the dust. I mean, this is such a classic, heartbreaking example of what they call smishing. We've all seen texts like this. Mr. X gets an urgent message, he clicks a link to a fake bank website, and just like that, his life savings were gone. And the criminals? They could have been in another city or another continent altogether. And this isn't just about individual tragedies, as terrible as they are. The financial stakes here are absolutely staggering. Get this, the average cost of a single data breach in India is now over $2 million. This is a massive threat to our whole economy. And this quote, this gets to the absolute core of the frustration. A study from KPMG found that almost half of all victims just feel helpless because of these cross-country issues. You know you've been robbed, but what can you do when the criminal is thousands of miles away and the local police have their hands tied? It creates what you can only call a jurisdictional nightmare. I mean, in the real world, the crime, the criminal, the evidence, it's all usually in one place. But online, the criminal could be in Russia, the server could be in Germany, and you, the victim, are in India. The old rulebook just wasn't written for a game like that. And that is why in 2023, India kicked off one of the biggest legal overhauls in its history. We're talking a complete system reboot, designed from the ground up for these 21st century challenges. The scale of this change is just immense. I mean, we are not talking about a few small amendments here. This is a total replacement of colonial-era laws, some of them over 150 years old. The old Indian Penal Code is being replaced by the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, or BNS, and the new Evidence Act, the Bharatiya Sakshya Adhinamyam, or BSA, this is a game changer. It now treats electronic records as primary evidence, putting them on the same level as paper documents, which is going to make it way easier to prosecute digital crimes. And you know what? This is an ongoing thing. It's an evolution. These new laws are really just the beginning. There's a proposed Digital India Act that's set to eventually replace that original IT Act from 2000, and it's trying to future-proof our laws against challenges we're only just starting to grapple with, like deepfakes and advanced AI. Okay, but here's the big but. right? When you give the government all these new powers to fight crime, it raises some really critical questions. How do we make sure that our fundamental rights, our privacy and our freedom of speech, are still protected? This quote, from a landmark Supreme Court case about internet shutdowns, just gets right to the heart of this tension. The court basically said that in a democracy, the government can't just operate in secret. People have a fundamental right to know why their freedoms are being restricted. So, the Supreme Court didn't ban internet shutdowns, but it laid down some really clear guardrails. It said, look, any shutdowns can't be indefinite. It has to be proportional to whatever the threat is. The government has to be transparent about it. And crucially, these decisions can be challenged in court. It's a huge precedent for this balancing act that we're talking about. So, after all of that, what does this all actually mean for you, for me, for every citizen living in this digital world? All right, so what's the bottom line here? First, India is taking a monumental leap, jumping from laws that were written when the internet was just getting started to a new code that's designed for the age of AI. Second, these new laws are built specifically to chase criminals across borders. And finally, all of this, it all comes down to this really critical, ongoing debate. How do we balance the need for security with our own fundamental rights to freedom online? And really, that's the question we want to leave you with. It's the core challenge that's facing not just India, but every single digital society on the planet. As more and more of our lives move online, how do we write the rules that actually keep us safe without giving up the very freedoms that make this digital world so powerful in the first place?